yet again another exciting and elucidating episode of the OmniTalk Ask an Expert series. I'm your host, Chris Walton,
And I'm Ann Mazinga.
and we are the founders of OmniTalk, the fast-growing retail media outlet that is all about the companies, the people, and the technologies that are coming together to shape the future of retail. And I can never say that enough. I just love saying that. And today, Ann, we've got a real special treat for our online watchers and our listeners who are going to listen to this interview later on. We always like to deliver the meat and potatoes at OmniTalk, don't we, Ann?
It's
And
very Midwestern of you.
I know,
With the
that's why I did it.
potatoes.
I totally did that because
Not
of the
like
Midwestern angle.
the keto dinner, the kale
Right,
salad.
not the quinoa, Ann, but we deliver the meat and potatoes. And oftentimes we see experts out on LinkedIn talking about the latest retail trends and also supply chain in general, but rarely do we see anyone talking about how the latest macro trends actually impact supply chains at a grassroots level. So that is what we're going to do today with today's experts. So allow me to introduce Blake Neal, the Director of Business Development at TGW Logistics. Blake, welcome to OmniTalk.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Blake, you're like a real life international correspondent. Where are you streaming from today? Where are we
I
finding
am
you?
currently in Market Harborough, England, at our UK office.
Oh my gosh. And I know you have a world tour planned. So maybe we'll have to do this a little bit more frequently. Get Blake's perspective from around the world. But before we get started here, we want to do just a quick reminder for all of those of you who are joining us live right now on LinkedIn. You can ask Blake and team your questions as we go along. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of them. So just type them in the chat on the right hand of your screen. Okay, Blake, let's get started. As we always do, will you give the listeners today a little bit of a background on TGW and then your role there?
Sure. Yeah, so TGW, we're a global leader in delivering comprehensive supply chain solutions to some of the top brands in retail, as well as fashion, grocery, excuse me, companies like that. And our core focus really is providing an end-to-end warehouse solution that typically encompasses storage, order fulfillment, and distribution within those networks. And
Okay.
I think what really that kind of sets us apart though from others is our commitment to collaboration innovation. Rather than just like offering an off-the-shelf solution, we try to work really closely with our clients to develop a custom solution that creates optimum systems for each business and really enables them to serve their customers exactly the way they want. So in my mind, the way I try to describe it to people is we're kind of like a small company, but with the big company resources, if that makes sense.
It does. And so what's your role particularly at TGW too, just to set the ground?
Yeah. So within business development, what we're really trying to do is create more brand awareness. We've got a really large presence in Europe, but within the US, we've been integrated for about 8 to 10 years now. And we're really trying to build up that brand recognition, bring in more customers. The ones that we have served, it's gone really, really well. And so we're trying to just continue that trend moving forward.
Got it. One thing I thought of too, Blake, as you were talking there too, is, it sounds like you're very consultative in your approach. And one of the tricky things about, warehouse logistics is there's a lot of capital involved in some of those
Mhm.
investments. So how do you balance the flexibility of working with clients and deciding what solutions best meet their needs or tailoring specific unique solutions to them with the cost that potentially comes with that or the issues that come with that down the line if you make the wrong decision? How do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a really good one. It really, really comes to analyzing what their current operation looks like and really what they're trying to do in the future. So if someone's going to invest tens of millions of dollars, you're going to want to make sure that what you give them is going to encompass their goals in the next 5, 10, 15 years. So that's really what we try to do. And also we've got a great financial team that works with us to try to guide customers and us as well as we're kind of working through those solutions.
Yeah, and you got to be darn sure you're making the right decision too before you
Mhm.
deploy that type of capital. All right,
Yes.
so one of the reasons we decided to have you on this program is that we spoke ahead of time about Ann and I firing off retail trends point blank and then getting your expert opinion on the supply chain implications for each of them. So fair play to you, first of all, is what I want to say, because not many people would stand in and allow
No,
us to do that to them. No, right, Ed? No way.
no.
No way. And so that's what we're gonna do. And so we're just gonna start firing them off. And I'm
Sounds
curious, are
good.
you ready for this? Because here's the first one. First trend. We're seeing a lot in the market about ultra fast, or some call it instant delivery. Speed's a universal truth. How should retailers and CPG brands be thinking about that one from a supply chain perspective? What do they need to do?
And this is a good one. And honestly, we've been talking about this one a lot internally. And
Mm,
we've been collecting a lot of data from our various clients to kind of get a better understanding of this. And what we're seeing is that the frequency of these fast or instant deliveries are going
Mhm.
up. So they're going from, say, 5 per month to nearly 10 per month and over the next year or so.
oh, wow. I didn't
Um,
know that.
but the problem, though, is what we're seeing is the frequency is going up, but the size of those carts are going down. So it's
Yeah.
it's dropping by like half. And that creates a problem when there's not enough revenue on every single one of those deliveries. So it's ending up costing these companies more money to deliver it than they're actually making. So it's becoming quite a challenge. Um, and so I guess the best way is to kind of set the scene here of the speed of delivery. And on average, most delivery companies can typically afford to invest in fast delivery and the profit margins are strong.
Okay.
But like I said, the margins are getting squeezed more and more and more. And it's becoming increasingly difficult for those retailers to offer it. Um, One thing that we've kind of seen is there is an opportunity where companies can take advantage of charging more for the service out of instead of being like a free service where you spend a certain amount of money, just charging for it.
Mhm.
Obviously, no one likes spending more money, but let's be honest, people have kind of gotten used to this instant gratification, and there really is this large emotional aspect to fast delivery. We want it now. Um, and I think I was reading a report from McKinsey a couple years ago that said that nearly 50% of shoppers actually abandoning their shopping carts just because they can't get something quickly enough or it's not indicated when they're going to receive their order. So
Right.
we are seeing a change, and what that's doing is a decline in micro fulfillment and a move away from automation within store fulfillment. And I think that's the biggest trend we're starting to see right now in terms of instant delivery and what implications that has.
Yeah, Blake, that's a great point. I mean, one thing that you got me thinking of as you were talking is like, what does that mean then from retailers who are thinking about the capital investments required for a micro fulfillment center or for an alternative to that to like
Hmm.
make this pencil?
Yeah, I what we're seeing is there's usually about a 32% savings on average over the course of a year investing in automation, and that can be
Okay.
anything from software to actually like an ASRS.
Okay.
Um, But the problem though is it's usually significant investment, so it's usually one of the larger companies that can make that investment.
Hmm.
Um, so a smaller retailer might not be able to, and that's where it becomes a problem.
Okay.
Um, it's just kind of the unfortunate beast of automation is that there is a cost to it.
Right.
So Blake, let me ask that question in a different way too. So say I'm a retailer and I'm not doing instant delivery right now, but I'm feeling the trend. Those growth numbers you said are pretty amazing. I mean, that's double the growth over the previous
Hmm.
year if those are the numbers you're seeing. So I'm not doing it right now. I want to get into it. What are three to five things I need to think about to get my supply chain ready to go after that business?
Yeah, I think one software is a
Mhm.
big deal. Understanding where your products are at all times. So knowing how quickly it's going to take to get to its end location. Um, I think the other one is being able to create orders quickly and efficiently. And using manual labor may work for some, but I
Right.
think that's when you need to start thinking about some form of automation.
So
Um,
you got to automate the
yes,
picking. Okay.
yes. And it's not just from a cost perspective, but it's also speed.
Hmm.
If someone wants something within 2 hours or next day, if you're doing that manually, you're having a large number of people trying to make that happen. And obviously, depending on the size of the retailer, but that's a big piece of it as well. And then I think the final piece is really that last mile delivery. having either an internal delivery company or hiring out some kind of local delivery company that can handle it for you. I think that's the final piece that really needs to be worked out prior to trying to get into that.
And what are the puts or takes that come with automation for ultra fast delivery? Like, you mentioned micro fulfillment centers are kind of maybe people aren't looking at those as much, but they're looking
Mhm.
at other options. Like, so if you want to start automating the picking for like 30-minute or less delivery, what does that actually look like?
For us, that's really a robust shuttle system.
Okay.
And
Okay.
what we typically do is we'll have our shuttle system that then feeds our picking stations. And those two combined, I mean, we can get an order out within 15 minutes,
Got
roughly.
it.
The second it comes in, it's usually, I don't want to say out the door, but it is ready to go within about 15 minutes.
Got it. And
That's, if you're doing this on a frequent basis, that's the kind of system that you're really going to need.
got it. And that system's either on site at the store or nearby
Um,
wherever the
Not
orders
so
need to
much
be
in the
serviced.
stores,
Okay.
Okay. So we're
just
talking
because of the,
separate.
yeah, it would probably be in a larger distribution center.
Okay.
And that could be local,
Mhm.
within
Right.
20, 30 minutes, but it's probably not going to be in the back end of a store.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
Well,
Perfect.
Blake, one of the things that you mentioned, and I want to kind of use this to segue into our next topic. You talked about investing in the software component
Mhm.
of distribution. I want to talk about the rise of digital marketplaces. Like it seems like every retailer now is trying to stand up a digital marketplace. I
Mhm.
imagine that involves a lot more coordination on behalf of the retailer, and then each one of those individual businesses that's either shipping direct to consumer or shipping to a distribution center for, say, a Walmart. um, how do you think about that, and what are some things that the audience listening really needs to pay close attention to when they think about supply chain and standing up this digital marketplace?
Yeah, it you can really, there's actually a huge advantage to doing which I found kind of interesting is,
Mm,
you know, you're now bringing in other products that you might not have access to, and you don't have
Hmm.
to have it in your distribution center. That can
Right.
be somewhere else, but you're selling it. And really the big thing here is it's a huge loyalty hack, um, because you've got all these other people coming into your store, your digital store, to potentially purchase from this third party, and now you can keep them as your client. But it does mean that you need to have a very robust system so that as they're ordering from, say, Walmart and then whomever else is your third party, that all of it's coming together the right way. And it's like you said, it goes back to a lot of that software to make sure that it's all being coordinated properly, that you're not disappointing your customers, because that's a big piece of this. If you're trying to build up loyalty, the last thing you want to do is disappoint them because something doesn't show up properly or it's not in stock. So that's a really big thing to be on the lookout for. And just to kind of put this out there, when we're talking about loyalty, one thing that we've been researching a little bit is what happens if a customer is disappointed. And on average, what we're seeing is that the first time that a customer is disappointed, there's a 15% chance they may go elsewhere.
Mhm.
It happens a second time, that jumps to 44. And then by a third time being disappointed, there's a 68% chance that they might jump ship and just go to another retailer.
Right.
Because as we all know, it's just that easy now to just click on a link and go to someone else.
Hmm.
yeah. So the
And
one big takeaway or the big aha or big nugget I have already is that, you think of logistics, you think of heavy equipment, right? You think of warehouses, you think of forklifts, you think of trucks, moving products. But at the end of the day, you've been saying software a lot. And
yeah.
so that's a big nugget here to start. And I want to press you again on the marketplace angle too, and maybe bring it up a level too with e-commerce now. So, e-commerce isn't slowing down, and just mentioned it. You got the growth of digital marketplaces too. One of the things that leads to is how do you handle returns? So like you could want to get into a marketplace, but it's going to create complexity for you on the reverse logistics side.
Mhm.
So how have you seen that impact the supply chains that retailers need to stand up?
This is a big topic. I mean,
Okay.
one of
Yeah.
the site walks I was on today, I just saw hundreds, thousands of crates of returns being ready to come back, and it's getting worse and worse.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
it, and companies are trying to combat it with new technology, like we're seeing online VR fitting rooms. so that maybe someone won't return something to begin with, or blockchain to provide more details in the origin of a grocery product. But let's be honest, it's still happening.
Yeah.
And I think really the main issue here is that most of the streamlined processes and automation that have been developed are designed to push the product out through the supply chain in one direction towards the customer, not back. And obviously where this becomes the biggest problem is, your peak season, like Christmas and Black Friday, when everyone's returning unwanted products. And now you're probably at capacity to begin with, just with getting all your orders out, pulling in additional labor, and now you've got an influx of returns, and everyone's fighting over the same labor pool. And it's such a manual process that you run into some massive issues. And I got to make a joke here really quickly.
That's fine.
My-
You're in the
That's
right
okay. We
spot.
love jokes. Yeah, no,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
not our brand at all.
I'm gonna throw my wife under the bus here, and she's gonna kill me, but
Okay,
she's probably
maybe
the worst
not the
one.
best idea, but go for
Probably
it.
not.
I'm
I'm
not
not
gonna
gonna tell her
stop
when
you.
this. She'll go to Amazon or whomever, and she'll order, 6 shirts, knowing that she's gonna return half of them and keep one of them. And I've been trying to explain, you need to see what it looks like in one of these DCs when all these products are coming back. It's terrible. But I will say one area of innovation that our clients have actually been asking for the past few years is integrating automation returns into the main material flow.
Okay.
So if we talk grocery stores for a minute, it makes a lot of sense to use automation, say during the quieter times of the day, like the middle of the night, when not everyone is getting groceries delivered to their house. So there's often a lot of unused capacity within those systems during those off-peak times, which gives us an opportunity to utilize that capacity and potentially actually configure it so that it's just as cheap to return as it is to pick, sending it out, if we do it at the right time. But it really means that we need to sit down and work with clients to develop the network, their supply chain network, and their strategy during the initial phase of the design, just to make sure that we can do that. I mean, it's possible, but you need to start having those conversations early on so it becomes part of that standard flow.
Got it. So let me put that back. So basically you're saying like the opportunity here is for retailers to automate their return process, just like they're automating their outbound process,
Correct.
right? At the
And
warehouse.
it can utilize the same system,
Mm-hmm.
but that's why you kind of want to stagger it when it happens. So you're not trying to bring product in while product is going out.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of stagger the two.
Yeah. And the second point is to work it into your flow cycles at the buildings,
Right.
right? So you mentioned grocery. I'm curious, does the same methodology apply across retail? Does that same philosophy apply, excuse me, I don't know why I said apply across like apparel as an example?
Oh, 100%. I
It
think
does, even more so potentially.
yeah, fashion
Okay.
I don't want to say it's one of the worst, but the biggest problem there is everything has to be checked manually. You have to go through to make sure the shirt or pants or whatever is fine.
Like they're not soiled or something.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you don't get it back into the flow, the season ends, and now all of a sudden I have all this product that's left here that's almost useless. So you either have to sell it to, let's say, a TJ Maxx or something like that, or it gets destroyed. So it's important that it gets back into that cycle as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So I want to ask a further question. So what do retailers do in that situation? Because I can remember when I was working at the Gap and even at Target, like some of our selling cycles are like 6 to 8 weeks long before those products go to markdown. So the idea of even getting them back into the flow is almost not going to happen. So what do you recommend as a supply chain solution or way to solve that problem?
I think the only way is to put limitations on the customer, saying you have a
Okay.
week, 2 weeks to return it. Otherwise, people are going to hold on to it and keep it until the last possible minute and then bring it back. And that's when, say, a Gap gets in trouble and they've got this, I don't want to say it's useless, but they can't turn around and sell it for the same amount that they did, in the prime time of the season.
Yeah. Hence too, and why we saw, just a few weeks ago, like announcements of people just saying, don't return products anymore. Like that's a new thing that retailers are starting to do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the numbers are just
keep
staggering,
them.
especially around the holiday seasons, like you
Mm-hmm.
said. I remember talking to this company, Arrive Recommerce, that at a conference this year, saying like, when you have people order 8 dresses, like only one of those is getting put back into the rotation. The rest are being burned or they're being disposed of, which
Hmm.
also gets us into our next
It
topic, which is
does. It really does.
sustainability, because I know that this has become a much higher priority for a lot of the retailers listening. Um, how then are retailers thinking about this when it comes to supply chain? How are you helping them, especially when we hear things like Target doing denim returns and
Hmm.
swaps, and then Walmart's trying to eliminate food waste with certain technologies? Like, how is that impacting the like strategies that you're helping these retailers develop, as you kind of go in and do these four walks with some of your clients?
Yeah, I think the first topic that we kind of need to discuss here in regards to sustainability is the human or social impact. So a lot of times
Okay.
all we talk about is the environmental, like the waste piece of it, but
Hmm.
a lot of companies are starting to think a little bit more about how their employees are actually affected by their
Yeah.
operations. And so one design consideration that
Mm,
can really impact sustainability is safety and ergonomics. And a lot of companies are just, like we talked about earlier, adopting just automation in general for their warehouse. But what that also does is help with the safety within that distribution center. Because instead of
Hmm.
a human or an individual going in and picking something and having to move something heavy, the system's doing it for them. And so it
Right.
becomes a safer, more ergonomic place for people to work. And like I was mentioning earlier, everyone's fighting over the same labor pool. And so if you can work to keep those employees happy, then you're not having to constantly hire new people and retrain them and the challenges that go with that. So I think that's one important thing to think about and part of just the overall design that companies are starting to think through. Um, and then obviously there's the environmental aspect.
Hmm.
Um, and the two things that really come to mind in the consumer world are um, the packaging and the transportation of goods. Those are probably the two biggest cost drivers that impact environment. Um, and I think one with packaging is just the waste of material.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna set the stage here for a second and kind of pick on Amazon. And just disclaimer, I love Amazon. I probably order far too much from them, so nothing against them. But we've all gotten the big Amazon box with a small box in the center of it, and there's just all this wasted space.
Hmm.
And what that's really doing is obviously is wasting a ton of cardboard, but it's also wasting volume inside of a truck or a plane as they're trying to transport it across the country.
Right.
So if we can size those cartons correctly, then you're saving, on carbon emissions from the trucks, and you're saving the physical waste of
right.
the cardboard. And so for us, one thing that we've worked to try to accomplish this is implementing custom packing solutions. And it will actually create custom boxes for a specific order that's sized specifically for that order.
Hmm.
So not only is it less waste, now you don't have this huge stockpile of empty boxes sitting in your warehouse. So
Yeah.
that's one thing that we've really tried to do to combat the environmental aspect.
Like, how are you as a business development person, how are you having those conversations with the clients that you bring on early on to really kind of help them understand that it's not only, an uh, more sustainable approach, better for your workers, but how are you helping them understand like the operational efficiencies and the economic benefits that come from this?
I think you always have to go back to ROI. Like
Yeah.
how is a business going to save money? How is it going to pay off in the long run? And that's, I think, the start of this conversation. And everyone wants to, improve the environment, improve the working situation, but you have to always realize that it's a business. They're trying to make money. And
Yes.
so if we can shape it and say, hey, after the course of 2 years, you're going to start seeing a return. That's when
Hmm.
these conversations become even more influential. Um, and I think that's where it really has to start. And
Yeah.
there's actual savings that can be seen from reducing the volume of a box, and now you can fit 20% more into a truck, let's say.
Yeah. Do you have any
Wow.
advice? I was just
Oh,
gonna
go
say,
ahead,
do you
Ann.
have
Yeah.
any advice for people listening? Because I know that I mean, Chris and I come across listeners all the time who are like, we're really, they're really trying to push sustainability. I mean, are there any things that have resonated with your conversation specifically, or like anything else that you would recommend that they kind of go after as they're approaching this?
Um, I think one thing is trying to really analyze your supply chain network to understand what your clientele, what they're looking for as far as like, do they want faster delivery? Do they want
Mhm.
uh, uh
They care
things
about
to be
sustainability. Yeah.
right? And so do you want to have two big distribution centers on either side of the country? Do you want a more hub and spoke type model to help those clientele? But that also affects just the transportation in general. So I think
Mhm.
those are some things to really think about is what your overall supply chain network looks like. And that's going to drive a lot of decisions, I think, in the long run when it comes to sustainability and things like that.
Yeah, it comes back, kind of comes back to a common theme we've been hearing a lot, Ann, right? It's like it comes back to the dollars and cents of running a productive business. If
Yeah.
you're shipping less trucks, you're shipping less packages, you're filling more trucks with the right amount of boxes, that should be more sustainable in the long run. Um, the question my head is spinning on right now is the addiction to fast fashion, and what does that
Mhm.
ultimately mean here? And
Right.
can we ever pull that needle out of our arm? Or are we going to continue to fuel that drug, so to speak, depending on how this all evolves too? But the points of the business model being the place to follow the money in terms of how to drive sustainability definitely continues to ring true from you, Blake, and other people we've talked to. All right, so let's close with this. Omnichannel. Ann and I are very happy that the word itself is now in vogue. We've held hard to it for going in our 8th year now. It's our specialty here at OmniTalk. So how do you see the trend of always being available to your consumer wherever he or she needs you, continuing to shape supply chains? Close us out with your thoughts on that topic.
Yeah, definitely a hot topic for sure. Everyone is talking omni-channel and how to make it best work for them. Um, and in one way, I think it has already started to shape supply chain is just the definition itself. For anyone that's in the logistics industry, they look at it from the supply chain side and how products are being distributed to stores and individuals. But from the consumer side, uh, they're looking at it, like you said, of always being available. Whether a consumer buys from a store or website, they expect to receive the same level of service and availability without a thought of what's happening behind the scenes. And I think that's why it's so crucial to properly analyze a company's current supply chain operations and then where they're looking to go in the future so that it can be shaped to keep up with customer demand. Because everyone just, they want everything now and they have absolutely no clue what's happening behind the scenes. Um, and so just depending on how you shape that network determines how you're going to be able to provide for that customer. And it, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're using an omni-channel or say a hub and spoke or any kind of combination of the two, you can provide the same level of service, but it's going to come back to like we are talking about with sustainability or cost of transportation and things like that. So you
Mhm.
really need to sit down and figure out who are your clientele, what are they looking for, and then help to shape the network and where you're positioning your distribution and fulfillment centers uh, to give them the best possible experience.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Let me ask you it a different way, because maybe in retrospect, I didn't ask that question in the right way too. Because I think what you're saying inherently makes sense, right? You want to evaluate the needs that you have for your
Hmm.
business and design your network to that end. So let me ask the question this way. So, what are some of the common mistakes you have seen people make
Mm.
as
Yeah.
they try to do that, or as they
Hmm.
try to become more omnichannel? What are things that they shouldn't do?
That's a good one. Adding automation for the sake of adding automation to say the omni-channel or whatever
Yeah.
is a bad way of going into it. I remember talking with a couple different clients and they were adding just AMRs to their system just to have them. And it didn't fit within their system. It didn't fit within their model. So instead of just adding automation, that's why it's so crucial to sit there and really analyze this is what you have. These are some ways to improve that. And if you're trying to speed up delivery or order fulfillment to get things out quicker, okay, here's a solution that's actually going to help you do that. So things need to be tailored to what the customer and the retail space is looking for. So yeah, that's probably the biggest thing I would say is don't just add things for the sake of adding them.
Like, do you see anybody that comes to you and they're like, look, I already evaluated, we'll say like ASRs, or they've already done that. Like they looked at it years ago and now
Mhm.
are hesitant to, or have set, like they'll tell you like, oh, we explored that. It's too expensive. It's not going to work. Um, do you come across that often where you're like, look, now there's a new way to think about it. Start with software, like kind of what you were saying.
Yeah.
What do you say to those people?
Um, Honestly, I would say let's sit down and talk and like analyze the numbers. Let's actually sit down and look at it and start talking about what they've seen in the past, what their budget actually looks like to try to give them a solution that fits within, you know, their company and their budget, what they're trying to actually
Yeah.
accomplish. And there's
I mean, because
there's always multiple
there's been a
ways.
change, right? Like there's been enough change as quick that quickly where it's not like you could have looked at it 3 years ago when this
Yeah.
started really gaining traction, and now it's the same today. It costs the
Mhm.
same, or the solutions are the same.
And nowadays you can, you know, some of the technology that we've rolled out is you can start to phase these systems so it can start really small and we'll see how that goes and we can start adding on to it without affecting your operations. And that's something that
Okay.
we couldn't do in the past, where you'd put in a big mini load system. It's a lot harder to start expanding that in the middle of operations where, you know, if you have, say, roaming robots, you know, I can add on to that pretty quickly, you know, and that's something to educate people on that, hey, as you grow, we can grow with you.
Mhm.
Got it. So kind of an MVP approach to logistics is kind of what you're espousing here too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Blake, we could probably ask you a million more questions. I want to just pause and thank you so much for giving us the time that you did today.
Yeah, that
And
flew
really,
by. God,
I
I can't
know
believe
it
we're already
did.
at 30 minutes. Like that
I
just flew
know.
by.
And just like, I'd love for us to be able to give our audience an opportunity to reach out to you, to really dive deeper into some of the topics that we covered today and really talk about the needs that they have as independent retailers or brands. If they do want to reach out to you, Blake, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
I would say email or phone. So my email is blake.neal @tgw-group.com. I
And
think
that's
we're going to try to share that.
NEAL,
AL,
right?
correct.
NEAL. Okay.
Yes. And phone number is 616-914-8542. So either one of those is probably the best way to reach me. And if you're on LinkedIn, feel free to shoot me a message. I'm always popping in and out of LinkedIn. So any one of those is fantastic.
The
We got the
number
hotline.
drop,
Yeah, the
Ed. The
hotline
number drop. The
bling,
second
Blake.
time in the history of OmniTalk. We haven't had that in like 6 years.
You
Oh
know,
my
I won't lie,
God.
I miss phone calls. I get tired of emails and text messages and stuff. Like, just give me a call. Let's talk.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, Blake. You're the best. This was
Thank you.
so
That was fun.
wonderful. We really appreciate you taking the time today. That wraps us up. Thanks to everybody who joined us live on LinkedIn and who's listening afterward. On behalf of all of us here at OmniTalk, be careful out there.